Hello and welcome to Fully Charged, coming to you today from outside the wonderful new V&A building here in the waterside of Dundee in Scotland. We've wanted to come to Dundee for a long time. What the City Council are doing and what the people of Dundee are doing has really set the pace for adopting electric vehicles. Hundreds of electric taxis here, loads of people got electric cars, amazing places to charge them. It's a really exciting city that's seen a huge resurgence in its cultural wealth. It's an amazing place. Tonight we're doing a live discussion show in the V&A. We're very excited about that. So there's only one more thing to say before we start, and that is welcome to Dundee. So Alan, thanks very much for coming and talking to us today with the fabulous view from up here of the city of Dundee. I mean, because I'm just seeing wind turbines in the distance there. Yeah. What you're doing here, I think, is remarkable. It does seem to be, a really consistent effort by the City Council to encourage people to start using electric vehicles.
We really are sort of pushing the whole electric vehicle agenda, and it's been going on for quite some time now. We were one of the first councils, I think, in the UK to sort of invest in an electric fleet, and from then it's just sort of snowballed, and we've had a lot of funding. We've applied for a lot of funding streams and that to help push that on. And now I think even sort of worldwide, people are looking at Dundee as a real trailblazer.
So, can you tell us then why a Dutch woman who drives electric vehicles is in Dundee?
That is a good question. I'm asking myself the same questions. What am I doing here? I met Fraser from the local government in Oslo at the Nordic EV Summit, and I was a bit surprised. I was moderating this session about heroes of EV, and I thought Dundee and having a solar panel, charging point, I was sort of intrigued by that and triggered. So when he said, well, come over for this event tonight, I was really curious. So I said, well, I'm coming over and I want to see what's happening in your city. So that's why I'm here.
Because you've had a good look around, because is it not amazing that this is happening here?
It is impressive what they're doing here. Yeah. I think he really sets an example, and I like that.
So, Alan, this is an amazing privilege to come to something like this, massive scale of it. I mean, it is really overwhelming, just the sheer size of it. That was an oil tanker that was converted to a static oil storage unit that was out in the North Sea for many years, and it's now being cleaned up and cut up and turned into razor blades, as someone said.
Yeah, so an FPSO, I'm sure I remember, it's a floating production, storage and output.
Right.
So it kind of floats, and it used to be an oil tanker before it was an oil rig, I suppose. So it's had quite an interesting life. But
so it's come to the end of its life now, and so that is an amazing kind of business opportunity for Dundee, though. For one thing, that you get to, presumably this is employing a lot of local people.
Absolutely. Well, this is the first decommissioning project to come to Dundee. So what we see that as the real sort of catalyst to now try and push the industry even more for Dundee. And what we've really got going in our favour here is the marine conditions are absolutely perfect for this type of decommissioning work. It's a deep water port, which allows the guys to do the work that they're doing. And then they've invested very heavily in the quayside here as well.
Right, because that's one of the things I think you've done here, which I think is really interesting, is there are charging hubs in the town. There are like car parks with loads of chargers in. Yeah. Which, even if there isn't a big uptake of electric vehicles now, the general public are going to be aware of that and go, oh, I see, if you have an electric car, that's where you can charge it. You've gone that way round. You've pushed the chargers out.
Absolutely. I mean, we have, just last year, we opened a number of charging hubs around the city. So that really it's all about being able to say to the people of Dundee, we will make it as easy as possible for you to own an electric vehicle in the future. And I suppose it's a kind of a build it and they will come type approach.
Yes. But I mean, I think that what is fascinating is it puts in perspective the scale of, if you like, the energy transition. If we're really going to stop burning fossil fuels, even in the next 100 years, the transition from this incredibly well-established industry all over the world to change that to some other way of doing it is a big job. It's a huge task.
There's still a long way to go, but I think that's why here in Dundee we can see that future
Right.
And that's why obviously we're now at the point where we can say if there's decommissioning work going on, then Dundee Port is the place to do it, and we're in a great location for it on the east coast of Scotland.
Yes.
I think Dundee missed out probably in the 1970s when the oil boom
so it wasn't. You didn't really have a lot of that happening here.
It didn't really come to Dundee, no. Although we had the opportunities for it to happen, for whatever reason, I wasn't here at the time.
Yes,
so
it's not your fault, definitely.
It wasn't my fault. That's not one thing they can blame me for. But certainly, I think Dundee did miss out on that for whatever reason. But now that we've sort of come full cycle, I think now is the time that Dundee can really benefit from the offshore.
And there is a vision about how this whole city should be electrified, and I like that.
That is great, because I mean, out of all the places, I'm always raving about what they're doing in Norway and what they're doing in the Netherlands, because I see you in the Netherlands as being way ahead of us in terms of electric vehicles and infrastructure and city planning and the way you have cities for people, not cars, and all those. It seems to us as visitors that you're way ahead, but the fact that you're impressed as a Dutch person, you're impressed with Dundee says a lot about this city, I think. I
think so too, and I think what I'm surprised about as well is that we are already in this stage that I think our government is saying, well, we're also already in a sort of mature market, so let's cut down the things.
Right.
And what I like here is that there may be more at the beginning, but that gives you sort of freedom to get all those new tactics and all those lessons learned and put it in your own city. So that's what I really like. And what we don't have in the Netherlands, not as much, are those parking places, those parking charging hubs.
Yeah. So Fraser, I've got to say, this is incredibly impressive. This is what I've dreamt about 5 years ago, that there would be an installation like this in towns. You've done it. You installed this last year, was that when this opened?
This is just about coming up for a year.
Right.
So it was last July we put it in here. What you're looking at is something that was planned. It took 2 years to plan this.
Right.
So this was engagement with all the communities, the taxi industry, as we see, queuing up here.
Taxis are really using, aren't they?
However, it only actually took us 13 weeks to build.
Wow.
It really doesn't.
So it went from a derelict site to this.
This was originally in 1981, 82. It was a Shell station. So it's right in the heart of the city, close to where the taxi ranks are.
Right.
So that was a key as well,
Yeah.
because we wanted to encourage the taxis, big polluters in the city.
Yeah.
But we just don't have 6 rapid chargers and 3 22 kilowatts. We've also got a solar array,
Right.
which does about 40 kilowatts, but that feeds right at the end here, which is a 90 kilowatt battery storage unit.
Right.
The real benefit of this is normally what you would have with solar is about 15% would go back to the grid, you'd lose that.
Yeah.
But when it's going into, you get 99% of it going into the battery storage unit,
right.
and you know that these cars are getting, from the sun, are getting charged up.
Right.
So it's obviously, if you've got all the cars charging here, 90 kilowatts is not going to cut it.
No.
But it's peak shaving. It's taking it. And the good thing about this, especially with the car industry, the taxi industry, when it comes in the morning between 9 and 10 after it does the contracts, the system knows that there's going to be a huge peak.
Right.
And it then kicks in to take out the battery storage, so give you a cheaper rate at that time.
Right.
And the clever thing about it is, amazingly, it gets a wee bit colder in the winter in Dundee.
I've heard that it can
does.
get nippy. Yeah.
So what happens is the system, after about a week, realises that they're actually coming in that hour earlier.
Right.
And then the system then kicks in that instead of 9, it'll kick in at 8. So
Right.
it really is thinking all the time when the best advantageous time to give the cheapest rate, which would normally be the highest.
Right. It's the actual amount of use that those chargers are getting, which is really what sets them apart, because there are motorway chargers all over the UK. I've heard from the people who operate those, it's actually still very low usage. You know, there are peak times, obviously, but there's a lot of the time they're just standing there dormant. These ones are just constantly going, aren't they? It must be.
They absolutely are, and I can give you some more stats on that. If you just take the Princess Street hub alone, there's 6 rapid charging stations there, and on average, each charging station is delivering 15 charging sessions daily.
And then the taxi firms as well. It seems to be they were one of the, after the council had electric cars. That was it one specific taxi company that started that?
Yeah. The 2020 company, they invested. I think they made their whole fleet electric, and that was a huge moment for us because it showed that it wasn't just the council that was on board with this, but there was actually business and others on board. And it's all about taking responsibility for lowering our emissions. We have a commitment to the government to implement a low emission zone by the year 2020, so next year. So we're getting quite tight.
Yeah.
I keep saying 2020 because I keep thinking we've got ages
to be in the future.
It used to be. Now it's now.
Next year.
But so we're really ambitious here in Dundee about promoting that whole agenda. And like I say, just making it easier, or as easy as we possibly can, to encourage people to go electric.
So Ryan, clearly when we were at the charging point this morning, there were a lot of taxis coming and going, which was really good to see. A lot of, mainly Nissan Leafs. So that is clearly working now.
Yeah.
And I'm just intrigued at the transition. So presumably, previously you were running diesel taxis.
It was somewhat incentivised by the council in 2016. They brought in what they called the electric taxi policy, and it meant that any new cars that were going on either had to be electric, or the plates which previously would have to be handed back when that person retired, provided it went on an electric car, that car could then be sold as a business. So that's helped to certainly see the numbers increase. And since then, as the cars have progressed, going from cars that were giving you realistically about 60 miles to more towards your 130, 140, there's been more of an uptake. We're now at about 15% of the taxi fleet in the city is electric.
So I see, so it's not, there's still a lot of old, I don't know what to call them, combustion taxis.
There are, yeah. Dundee's got a 60-40 split on wheelchair accessible cars versus what we call your saloons. The only real one that's available at the moment, I believe, is the ENV 200, which failed the council's test on a height regulation. So at the moment, that's 60% of the fleet. In order for that to then be able to transfer across, we're needing to see something that's on the market that's wheelchair accessible and down the miles.
It's actually to do with the vehicle choice is what's holding it back at the moment rather than So I'm presuming most of the taxi drivers that have gone into electric cars are already driving taxis, but just combustion taxis.
Yes.
So, and have they adapted the technology willingly?
It takes somebody to move in order to see the benefits.
Right.
Somebody that's never driven an electric car, you ask them about it, they'll go on about the downtime. I'm out to work, I'm not down to sit at a charger drinking coffee. But it's at the end of the week when you start looking at the figures, what would typically be £180 to £200 in diesel a week will equate to more like a £30, £40 electricity bill. Once guys see the benefit in that, because I don't think that the earnings work out much less, just given the comfort and quietness,
so much
the
easier
refinement
to drive,
of the cars
isn't it?
versus the diesel. You find that they wouldn't want to go back the way. Most of the guys that I've got working for me, I do have a diesel in my fleet, and if I've got to put them on it for the day, they're moaning about it.
So they actually don't want to drive the diesel. They all want to drive the electric one. In terms of their longevity, then, are they holding up? Because they're doing mileage that most private owners couldn't imagine. They're on the go all the time.
At the moment, I've got a mixture of 30 and 40 kilowatt Leafs. I did start with a load of 24 kilowatts, and I would say that generally they've held up. The double shifting takes its toll on them. Just the heat in the batteries, you do notice a quicker degradation, but it's kind of getting that right time to get rid of them. I think most of them I've taken to about 130,000 miles, and it's not that they've not been up to the job anymore, it's just that there's been newer, better cars on the market, and that's pretty much been the tone of it since about 2015, 2016.
It took me 8 years to do 60,000 miles in my Leaf, so a lot longer. So you're pounding them much more. And so when you say double shift, so they're doing all day and then up right into midnight.
So the shifts are split just to 6 a.m, 6 p.m, and vice versa. They'll usually get a bit of downtime between shifts, but there are times when they can be worked up to 22, 24 hours a day.
But in terms of then mechanical soundness, like drivetrains, steering, brakes, that's all been...
Yeah, just referencing what you were saying earlier on about the article that came out about the brakes, you're getting, even as a taxi, you're getting about 100,000 miles out of a set of brake pads.
Right. And what would you get out of a set of brake pads on a diesel? I don't know what it would be.
30,000.
Wow, okay, so it's that much better.
Another bit of information is the solar generation. To date, we've generated 17,000 kilowatts of power, which is effectively 60,000 miles traveled, which is a great result on the solar generation.
But that, the brilliant thing is that it's so obvious that if you are having a a cover for cars where you plug them in and you've got solar panels on the top and you've got a battery. I mean, that everyone can understand that. I go, oh, I get it. So the sun hits that, it gets stored in there, then you plug your car in and you use some of that. I mean, even if it doesn't do, I'm sure it doesn't do 100% of what this is using, a lot of electricity, but it's taking a big chunk out of it.
It's certainly taken at the peak times.
Yeah.
So and where the battery storage, if it doesn't get enough, some days it's not sunny.
Yeah.
In Dundee.
Are there days when it's not sunny?
We are the sunniest city in Scotland. I'll have to put that one in. But however, some days it doesn't. What you've got is the battery storage system between 1 and 2 o'clock at night.
Right.
That's when it takes its cheap
So it's taking it from the grid.
It's taking the cheap rate when there's not enough solar.
Yeah.
So there's different elements to it, all about,
Yeah.
as you say, trying to get as much renewables to charge up these vehicles.
You know, I think electric driving is now about reaching out as well. I think
Yeah.
people, the public industry should see electric driving. And if I look at the situation with my Dutch eyes, I like the situation where you've got more charging on the street.
Yeah.
Because charging on the street means that you see the electric cars charging, seeing people getting out of it. So it's more an inclusive, except for, having a certain hubs. And if you don't come there, you will never see an electric car in your life.
Yes.
So that's not good, I think, for the adaptation of electric cars.
And then if you come here as a private car owner, what do you pay to use the chargers?
At this moment in time, it is completely free.
Wow.
The council pay for it at the moment.
Right.
Obviously, we've tried to promote it as much as we can before we start putting in tariffs.
Right.
It's really gone so quickly. We will start charging.
Yeah.
But that's actually, we'll only start charging, and we're roughly looking at about 15 pence a kilowatt to start with. So it's not...
So much cheaper than quite a lot of commercial chargers.
What we don't want to do is we don't want to stop this. Now, although we're looking at Dundee and we've got so much going on, as you well know, we're only sitting at maybe 2%.
Right.
We're so far away still.
Yeah.
We really need to... So the Scottish Government's a big driver for us, and they have indicated that they want the public, so business, taxis, and companies like the delivery service here, they'll have to charge because the public don't want to pay for businesses.
Yes.
But as far as the public is concerned, the Scottish Government have asked us to kind of keep that free for the next 2 years.
Right.
And they're prepared to give us funding
to cover that.
To accommodate
Right.
that. And it took us probably about 2-3 years into this to understand that this is not just about chargers.
No.
It's not just about cars. It's about mobility.
Yeah.
It's about movement within your city. What are we going to do to stop it going gridlock?
Yeah.
What are we going to stop about for the pollution? So it's now about where do we want the chargers to be, because that's where we want the cars to be.
Right.
So you understand that there's a lot of stuff
There's a
here.
lot more going on.
And how do you do it? Everybody always goes, how do you do it?
Yeah.
That's a big question we always get. The chargers don't talk to you.
No.
Not yet.
Yeah.
The cars don't. Some do, but not many. They're metal objects.
Yeah.
It's people, and it
Yeah.
always has been.
Yeah.
And it's about engaging with people and bringing people along with you.
Yeah.
And anybody can do that.
But then what's actually happening with this ship then? It's being effectively cleaned here and all the dangerous stuff taken off.
Yeah,
But then it's towed to Turkey. I think that is just amazing. I mean, you think of the scale of the logistics involved.
Yeah.
So it's towed to Turkey, which is where it will be dismantled and recycled, I suppose.
It's massive, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I was informed that this was still producing oil as recently as 2 weeks ago.
Wow.
Where it was out at sea, and it's been brought here. So it's doing a clean out. It's now completely empty. So my understanding is it'll be completely cleaned out here before it's towed to Turkey.
Right.
So it doesn't, it can't sail by itself. So it's,
So it has to be towed along.
Yeah, I think there's like four towing vessels will take it to Turkey, and they do the rest. Yeah.
I mean, the thing that I just want to remind our viewers is, because it's one of my bugbears, is when we see the measurement of the tailpipe emissions. That is so much the very, very last end of the process. It doesn't really tell you the whole picture. I mean, when you see the scale of what has gone in to get that petrol to that petrol station.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't know how many barrels of oil that thing could have been holding. A lot. Yeah. So you're right. Yeah. It's trying to see both ends of the scale, I suppose.
Yeah.
To the everyday man on the street, you wouldn't really anticipate this side of it.
Yeah.
We're now in a situation where we think we even need to expand this because it's working so well.
Yeah.
But what we've tried to future-proof it here. So what we actually have is 1,000 kilowatt amount of power here.
Right.
We're actually at the moment only using about 350.
Oh, I see.
So-
God, because that was one of the things I was going to ask, is the capacity for the network locally. But you've
Yeah.
got more, you've actually got more capacity.
We've got more
here.
capacity in here to expand it, but
Right.
what we want to do is take this slowly. You cannot,
Yeah.
as you're probably aware, you cannot do any of this very quickly because
Yeah.
you'll make mistakes
Yeah.
as technologies, etc. But what we do think is key for the hubs, and we've got obviously another 2 of these in the city, is we keep mentioning the taxi industry.
Yeah.
They are key to using it because regardless of how much range the cars get, the taxi industry will always be needing a rapid charge.
Yeah.
But we've also got to take into account that 51% of the population of Dundee do not have any on-site parking.
Right.
So they're never going to have a solution.
place they can plug
to
in at
park
home. Yeah.
So this is also a solution for them.
We are now at this moment in the Netherlands and we are mocking our government because, you know, they're lacking vision.
Right.
You know, they're saying one thing and they want this and then they're taking half measures. But what's happening here? They're really having a vision and doing, you know, putting the money where their mouth is.
Yeah.
So I really like that.
Yeah.
And that there is a vision about how this whole city should be electrified. And I like that.
Dee, you are not a native, but then you're very involved in electric vehicles
Electrification.
in New Zealand.
Down in
Because your stat of how many electric vehicles are in, that is staggering.
So we went from less than 500 on the road to 15,000 in New Zealand, and that's without any incentivized anything, no tax breaks, nothing. That was just the power of community. And that's why I fell in love with Dundee. This is a plucky little city that punches well above its weight. And just seeing what they're achieving when there's so many other maybe more resourced centres not touching Dundee in this conversation. It's a real feel-good story, and it's a great place with a lot of personality.
And there's quite an uncanny connection between Dundee and New Zealand.
Video games.
Because of video games. I mean, that is such a bizarre...
I know, what are
Those
the
two
chances?
things. I'd never put them together. Video games and electric cars. From now on, I know those two things are basically linked. I did ask him if there are any electric cars in Grand Theft Auto, and there aren't.
Oh,
Which,
there should be.
In some ways, it's quite a good thing. Because if you could drive a Nissan Leaf around the badlands of LA running over various people, I don't think that's something we should encourage.
They wouldn't hear you coming.
They wouldn't hear.
Oh!
I fed that one to you. Well, that's all we've got time for. I hope you enjoyed this episode. We've had an amazing time up here in Dundee. It's absolutely extraordinary what the Dundee City Council are doing. I want to thank SWARCO, who helped us come up here to see this and to help to arrange the fabulous live event that we had at the V&A. I want to thank the V&A in Dundee. If you ever get the chance to go, it's an extraordinary building. It's open to the public. You can go in. We had a wonderful time. The amazing car charging stuff they've got going on here, really exciting. The taxi companies have been amazing. So I won't go on too much, but also want to thank our wonderful Patreon supporters. Without you, this show would not be possible. It's as simple as that. So thank you very much. Do have a look at the Patreon page if you've got a moment. Have a look at the new fully charged .show web page, which is chock full of gorgeous, juicy, organic information. Do subscribe to Fully Charged. Do press the little bell dingy ding if you want to. And as always, if you have been, thank you for watching.